Noah Carter had always been a quiet man. At 76, he lived alone in a small house on the edge of town, surrounded by stacks of old books, handwritten letters, and memories he rarely spoke about. Every morning, he followed the same routine, watering the flowers in his small garden, sipping coffee on his porch, and watching the world pass by. One day, as he walked to the local store, he noticed a young boy sitting alone on a bench. The boy, no older than 10, had his head down, a torn backpack beside him. His clothes were wrinkled, and his face carried an expression that Noah recognized all too well: loneliness. Noah hesitated before walking over. "Hey there, son. You all right?" The boy looked up, surprised. He nodded but didn't speak. "Waiting for someone?" Noah asked. The boy hesitated before shaking his head. "No." Noah sat down beside him. "Name's Noah. And you?" "Jake," the boy muttered. "Nice to meet you, Jake." Noah glanced at the backpack. "Where are you headed?" Jake shrugged. "Nowhere, really." Noah didn't push. Instead, he pulled out a small notepad from his pocket and a pen. "You know, when I was your age, I used to write letters. Never sent them anywhere, just wrote them down." Jake looked up, confused. "Letters?" "Yeah, to the world, to people I missed, to myself," Noah said, flipping through the pages. "It helped me figure things out." Jake watched as Noah handed him a blank piece of paper. "Try it," Noah encouraged. "Write whatever's on your mind. No one has to read it but you." Jake hesitated before taking the paper. Slowly, he started writing. His small hands moved across the page, and for the first time, his shoulders relaxed. Noah sat beside him, watching the world pass by, just as he always did. But today, something was different. Today, he wasn't alone. And neither was Jake. Noah didn't rush Jake. He simply sat there, letting the boy scribble whatever thoughts came to him. The park was quiet, the occasional chirp of birds filling the air. After a few minutes, Jake sighed and stared at the paper in his hands. "You don't have to show me," Noah said gently. Jake hesitated, then folded the paper and stuffed it into his pocket. "It's not very good," he muttered. "Doesn't have to be," Noah replied with a small smile. "It just has to be honest." Jake looked down, his fingers gripping the edge of the bench. "I used to write stuff all the time," he admitted. "But people don't really care about what I have to say." Noah shook his head. "That's not true. Sometimes it just feels that way. But words, they matter, Jake. Your thoughts, your feelings, they matter." For the first time, Jake met Noah's gaze. There was uncertainty in his eyes, but also something else. Hope, maybe. "Where are your parents?" Noah asked softly. Jake hesitated. "My mom, she's working late a lot, and my dad's not around anymore." Noah nodded, understanding more than he let on. "That must be tough." Jake shrugged. "I guess. I don't really talk about it." "You don't have to," Noah assured him. "But when you do feel like talking, whether it's to me, to paper, or just to yourself, it helps." Jake was quiet for a moment. Then, he pulled out the paper again, unfolded it, and stared at the words he'd written. Finally, he looked back at Noah. Do you still write letters?" Noah chuckled, patting his pocket. "Every day." Jake seemed to think about that. Then, with a small, almost shy smile, he said, "Maybe I'll try writing another one." Noah nodded. "I'd like that." And for the first time in a long time, Jake felt like someone was listening. The sun had begun to set, casting a warm orange glow over the park. Noah and Jake sat in comfortable silence, the kind that didn't need to be filled with words. After a while, Jake spoke again. "Who do you write letters to?" Noah smiled faintly. "To my late wife, mostly. Sometimes to my younger self. Sometimes to no one in particular." Jake frowned. "But if your wife..." You know, if she's not here anymore, then why do you still write to her? Noah's gaze softened. Because love doesn't disappear just because someone is gone. Writing to her helps me feel close to her, even if she can't read the words. Jake looked down at his paper. I guess that makes sense. He was quiet for a moment, then added, I wish I could talk to my dad. Noah's heart ached at the words. You can, Jake. Maybe not in the way you want, but you can still tell him things. You can write to him. Jake bit his lip. But he won't read it. Noah nodded. Maybe not. But the important thing is that you get to say what's on your heart. Jake stared at the paper, as if considering this for the first time. Slowly, he started writing again, his small fingers gripping the pen with new determination. Noah watched him for a moment before standing up. Come on, kid. Let's get you something to eat. Jake hesitated but then followed, tucking his letter safely into his pocket. As they walked to the small diner near the edge of town, Noah realized something. This boy wasn't just a lost kid on a bench. He was someone searching for connection, just like Noah had been for so many years. And maybe, just maybe, they had both found what they were looking for. The little diner smelled of fresh coffee and warm bread. It wasn't fancy, just a small place with checkered tablecloths and a jukebox in the corner that played soft old tunes. Noah led Jake to a booth near the window, where they could still see the last hints of the sunset. The waitress, a kind woman named Carol, smiled when she saw Noah. Haven't seen you in a while, old man. Who's your friend? This is Jake, Noah said, nudging the boy gently. He's got an appetite, so we'll take 2 cheeseburgers and some fries. Jake looked up in surprise. You don't have to. Noah waved a hand. I know I don't have to, but I want to. Let's just call it an investment in a young writer's future. Jake hesitated but then gave a small nod. Okay, thanks. As they waited for their food, Jake pulled his letter out again, smoothing the paper against the table. Can I ask you something? Of course. Jake kept his eyes on the words he'd written. Do you think my dad ever thinks about me? Noah's heart tightened. He could see the worry in the boy's face, the fear of being forgotten. He thought carefully before answering. I don't know your dad, Jake, but I do know that a person's heart doesn't just stop caring, even when they're far away. Jake frowned. But if he cared, wouldn't he be here? Noah exhaled slowly. Sometimes people leave for reasons that have nothing to do with love, and sometimes they just don't know how to come back. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he whispered, I miss him. Noah reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded letter of his own. I get it, kid. I miss my wife every single day. Jake looked up. Do you ever get mad about it? Of course, Noah admitted. I get mad. I get sad. I feel everything. And that's okay. But I also remind myself that love doesn't disappear just because someone isn't sitting across from you. Jake studied his letter again, then, with a deep breath, placed it inside his backpack. Maybe I'll write more letters, he said softly. Not just to him. Maybe to my mom, too, even if she's busy. Noah smiled. That sounds like a great idea. Just then, Carol arrived with their food. Jake's eyes widened at the sight of the burger, and for the first time that evening, he looked like a regular kid, one who wasn't carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. As they ate, Noah realized something. This wasn't just about a lost boy needing a friend. This was about 2 people, from different walks of life, finding comfort in each other's presence. And for the first time in years, Noah didn't feel so alone. As they ate, Noah noticed how quickly Jake devoured his food. The boy was clearly hungry, not just for the meal, but for the comfort of a shared moment, a simple kindness. You eat like you haven't had a good meal in days, Noah said gently. Jake hesitated mid-bite, then shrugged. Mom works late, so sometimes I just grab whatever's at home. but it's mostly cereal or toast. Noah's chest tightened. That's no way for a kid to live. Jake looked down at his plate. She tries. She's just tired all the time. Noah nodded. She must be working hard to take care of you. Jake poked at his fries. Yeah, but I think she's sad too. Ever since my dad left, she's different. Noah took a slow sip of his coffee. Losing someone changes you. He paused, choosing his words carefully. But you know what helps? Jake glanced up. What? Knowing that you're not alone. Knowing that someone out there cares enough to listen. Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Do you think my mom needs that too?" Noah smiled. "I think everyone does, kid." Jake thought about that, then pulled out his notepad again. He flipped to a clean page and started writing. Not another letter to his dad, but something new. Noah leaned over slightly. "Who's this one for?" Jake gave a small, shy smile. "My mom." Noah's heart warmed. He didn't know if the boy's father would ever return, or if his mother would find the happiness she deserved. But he knew one thing for certain. Jake had learned something important tonight. That words had power. That love didn't disappear just because life got hard. And that sometimes, a simple letter could bridge the distance between two hearts. As they finished their meal, Jake looked up at Noah. "Can we meet again sometime?" Noah chuckled. "Anytime, kid." And just like that, something changed, not just for Jake, but for Noah too. Because in that moment, they weren't just an old man and a lonely boy. They were two people who had found each other, right when they needed it most. As they stepped out of the diner, the night air was crisp and quiet. The town's streetlights cast a soft glow over the sidewalk, and for the first time in a long while, Jake didn't feel small in the world. He had someone walking beside him, someone who understood. Noah walked Jake to the bus stop, where the boy's mother would be expecting him soon. They sat on the bench for a few minutes, neither speaking, just watching the occasional car pass by. Jake looked up at Noah. "Do you think things will get better?" Noah smiled. "I think they already are." Jake thought about that, then nodded. He pulled the letter he had written for his mom out of his pocket, holding it carefully. "I'll give this to her when I get home." "I think she'll love it," Noah said. The bus pulled up, and Jake stood. Before stepping on, he turned back. "Thanks, Noah, for everything." Noah nodded. "Anytime, kid." Jake climbed onto the bus, taking a seat near the window. As the bus pulled away, he pressed his hand against the glass in a small wave. Noah returned the gesture, watching until the bus disappeared into the night. Standing there alone, he reached into his own pocket, pulling out one of his old letters. He unfolded it, reading words he had written long ago to his late wife. "You'd tell me to keep going, to keep my heart open, to find the good in every day. Well, my love, I think today, I finally did." With a small, contented sigh, Noah tucked the letter away and started the walk home. Tonight, the world didn't feel quite so lonely, and he knew that somewhere, on a quiet bus ride home, a little boy was holding on to hope, one letter at a time.